Every city has its secrets, and Hamilton is no different. For years, people have been sold on affordability, community, and lifestyle. But like anywhere else, Hamilton has its challenges that often don't make it into the glossy brochures or moving guides. Today, I'm breaking down some of the lesser known downsides of living in Hamilton. And of course, I'm balancing it out with some positives so you can make the decision that's right for you. Let's get into it. This is the dark side of Hamilton, what nobody else tells you. Like I said, every city has secrets, and for years, people have been moving here because they've heard it's affordable, there's a good lifestyle, good community, all that stuff. And that is all true, but there's also a flip side to that. Number one, the industrial legacy and the air quality that goes along with that. Hamilton is called Steel City for a reason. Decades of industry has left its mark from the skyline where you come over the bridge, dominated by factors, to ongoing air quality issues. Certain areas, especially near the industrial sector, can feel and smell a little gritty. That being said, I hear people complain about the smell, and really, maybe if you're living right in that industrial area, you might get a whiff of it once in a while. I don't ever notice it. There is a bit of soot that you will find on stuff. I find that I have to wipe my outdoor furniture throughout the summer, as there's kind of a black soot that ends up on it. But living in Toronto was no different. I lived near the Gardner, and my balcony would be covered in dirt all the time. So really not a big difference, but something I have noticed. Also, the waterfront is being revitalized. Pier 8 is transforming, and many of those once industrial spaces are being turned into trendy lofts, breweries, and creative hubs. So what was once a negative is slowly becoming a strength. And you know what? The industrial sector has been the backbone of the economy here in Hamilton for many years. So, it's got its place. Next, we have the public perception and the reputation of Hamilton. So let's be honest, Hamilton has had an image problem. For some GTA buyers, the word Steel City bring up stereotypes of smokestacks and rough neighborhoods or crime. And like I said, the skyline and the factories along part of the waterfront, those are a real thing. But it's counterbalanced with it being the waterfall capital of the world, with over 100 waterfalls in the direct area that you can get to within 10-15 minutes. People who actually move here realize quickly that Hamilton has many pockets of beauty and culture, from hiking trails to places like Locke Street with the restaurants, and James Street North, the Arts District. Both of those places have become real hubs for tourists and locals alike to go and enjoy life. It's a great spot. The food in this city is incredible. I was shocked at the great food scene that's here. A lot of I think a lot of Toronto chefs and restaurateurs have started to realize that and have come here. I highly recommend taking a look, scroll TikTok, and you will find a million good places to eat. So really, the reputation lags behind reality, which can really be an opportunity for homebuyers if you're looking to move to the city. Next, we'll talk about transit and commuting, always a big subject. While the new LRT project is underway, there's an inside joke because that's been going on for a long time, but I believe they are making headway at this point. Public transit in Hamilton hasn't really kept up with the city's growth. Buses can be slow, roads are often in poor condition, and that's commuting within the city. I actually find it a breeze. It's really not that bad, especially coming from Toronto. But speaking of which, commuting to Toronto can range from 45 minutes on a good day to a couple hours, depending on traffic, weather. If there's an event happening in the city and there's more people on the road, obviously there will be more traffic. But I remember living in Toronto, and just getting from the Distillery District over to Parkdale could take 2 hours sometimes. So honestly, getting from Hamilton to Toronto on a bad day, which would take you 2 hours, is probably not that bad. And then on the flip side of that, once the LRT is completed, the east to west traffic travel will be much smoother. And just in general, like I said, traffic is significantly less than it is in Toronto, and parking is a breeze. I hear people complain about parking here, but it's nothing compared to Toronto. And with 2 GO stations and expanded service being planned, Hamilton is being connected to more and more to Toronto every day. And it's also 30 minutes to St. Catharines and Niagara. So, you're really in a great spot here. You're just about an hour to the Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge area as well. So it's a great location. Next, we have the economic divide. So, like a lot of places, there is going to be a massive difference in different areas, right? Hamilton has areas of dramatic economic differences, neighborhoods revitalizing quickly versus those that are still struggling with poverty. Walking a few blocks can feel like stepping into a completely different world, and that's very true. But that also creates investment opportunity. The economic diversity creates all kinds of options for people, buyers who are maybe priced out of Toronto, Mississauga, Burlington, Oakville, all those places often find Hamilton's up and coming areas attractive for both lifestyle and long-term investment potential. I really noticed that, traditionally people in Hamilton, like, were, being on the mountain was the sought after area. But a lot of people have come from Toronto and moved into places like Crown Point or Delta or Homeside or Bartonville, all these places in lower Hamilton. And it's become, they fixed up homes. It's become a really nice place. So, you don't always have to be on the mountain. The prices definitely there are a bit higher. It's a beautiful area, but there are very nice other neighborhoods as well. Speaking of housing, the older housing stock, Hamilton itself is an older city and has a lot of older century style homes. So those can often come with hidden costs. When these houses are 80 or 100 plus years old, you can sometimes find stuff like knob and tube wiring, which, we went through as well in our house that we purchased. It was not disclosed. We had an inspection done. Wasn't found. We later on found it and had to get it fixed. It was unfortunate cost, but now we're all up to date and feel much safer. So the truth is, knob and tube itself is not that bad. Insurance companies tend to have an issue with it, and they will just make you rectify the problem within a certain amount of time. But it's been in the house for 60, 80 years, whatever the case is. So it's not as bad as kind of the perception around it, but it does need to be fixed at some point. Same with old plumbing. There's old lead pipes in some of these houses that will need to be fixed, both on the city side and on your property side. And then, foundations that need work, that can be an issue with certain houses as well, some of these older houses, but all these things can be upgraded, fixed, and they can also be, recognized up front, right? During home inspections and stuff like that. I've learned a lot being on a ton of home inspections over the years. So, these things can all be mitigated prior to purchasing. And then the flip side of that is you have these homes that, have charm. These century homes often have large lots, beautiful brick facades, beautiful details that you just won't find in newer homes. And you won't get the same kind of airtight problems that can cause mold in some of these newer homes. And compared to Toronto prices, like, it's not even comparable. The amount of space, the amount that you get for your money, the bang for your buck, even, factoring in some of these renovations. Continuing to talk about housing and housing prices, the average price here, and this one I always preface. So the average price currently is about $767,000, I think, in August 2025. But that's including Ancaster, Dundas, Stony Creek, Binbrook, all these surrounding areas that have higher priced homes. So they bring that average up. I work with a lot of first-time home buyers who, may be looking in that $450,000, $500,000 range, and you can get a detached, entry-level first-time buyer home in that price range. So don't let that 750 scare you. But that being said, a lot of these homes, just a few years ago, were 250 to 300,000. So that's dramatically changed. So that might be very expensive, in the eyes of people who are from Hamilton, right? And so, but the people from moving into the city from Toronto may find these prices, much more reasonable coming from some of these higher priced areas. All that being said is we do tend to have a higher property tax rate in Hamilton, but because the home is cheaper, you're going to pay less taxes. So Toronto property tax percentage is lower, but you're paying lower percentage on a higher priced house. So ipso facto, it kind of works out in the wash. It's a higher rate in Hamilton, so you might pay $5,000, something like that. But if you were paying less percentage on a home that's 2 or 3 times the price, obviously you're going to be paying more overall. So just something to keep in mind. And like I said, the affordability is, it's still here. I know we talked about how Hamilton was originally being sold as this affordable place. And it may not be that in some people's eyes compared to what it used to be, but it still is. And home prices, contrary to the doomsday sayers, are not going down. They are correcting currently, but I don't think we're going to see a massive downtick. And I think in 10 years we're going to see that prices have gone back up again. So all that being said, there's still better value here than in Toronto. Next, this one is on everybody's minds. I have a young family, so obviously crime rates and safety concerns were, something on my mind when we were looking for a home. And this kind of ties in with the perception that Hamilton has that it can be high crime rates and all that stuff. But like any mid-size city in Canada, Ontario, it deals with its certain level of, addiction, homelessness, crime, all that stuff in certain neighborhoods. Like the downtown core and some of the older industrial areas have higher reported incidences of property crime, drug-related issues, and then homeless encampments are scattered throughout the city, which can create perception issues. But I think you'll find this in any city like this, in London, Windsor, Barrie, Sudbury, you name it. I think you're going to find a very similar mix, right? And this is why you work with a realtor, to help you purchase in an area that is safe. The flip side of that is Hamilton's crime rate is actually lower than many Canadian cities of a similar size, with violent crime relatively rare compared to property crime. A lot of like kind of petty stuff that may happen, but again, that's happening in specific neighborhoods. But if you go to neighborhoods, especially on the mountain or Ancaster, Dundas, Stony Creek, like I talked about, they're really considered safe and family friendly areas. And safety often comes down to a specific street or community that you choose. Think when people say Jane and Finch in Toronto, you're not going to not move to Toronto because there's a certain intersection where you don't want to go. Same thing applies here on a smaller scale, really. So if you are thinking about moving to Toronto, you got to weigh your pros and cons. And this is, hopefully going to help with that. So you got to look at affordability. Still better value in Toronto despite rising prices. There's no argument there. Honestly, the sense of community in this city and the local pride is massive. People are really, happy to be from here. Very friendly, very welcoming, contrary to, I talked about how they may think that prices have risen and maybe people coming from other places have contributed to that. We've been nothing but welcomed into the communities here. So really, really happy to share that. And the nature access, like I only touched on this a little bit, but the waterfalls, the hiking trails, the green spaces throughout the city, it's incredible the access you have to such beauty within such a short commute outside of the city. And then, like I said, you have these character homes with unique architecture, charm, stuff you won't find in a lot of these newer developed places. So like I said, Hamilton's not perfect. No city is. But the same things that people see as drawbacks, i.e. older houses, gritty reputation, industrial history, are exactly what's given Hamilton its unique character and affordability. So if you are considering making a move, I hope this helps give you both sides. So it's not all shiny. You kind of understand some of the things you're getting into. And if I can be of assistance, feel free to reach out. You can book a call below using the Calendly link. Simply shoot me a text and I'm happy to have a chat about that. I am part of the Golfi team. We are the biggest in the area. And so, again, happy to help and I look forward to it. Talk soon.